Hello, everybody. This is Brian David Johnson, and I am the guest editor of the IEEE Computer Magazine special issue on the world of making, where we looked all around the world. We looked at people making in the areas of biology and design, of science and business, technology, entertainment, education, and culture. And really what we wanted to do was capture a snapshot of the world of making in the year 2014. And these podcasts are going to be a way for us to be able to go a little bit deeper with each of our different contributors. And who we have with us on the podcast today is Carolina Ödman-Govender, who is an engineer, also an astrophysicist, and is one of the contributors to the issue. And specifically, she was looking around maker culture in South Africa. So, Carolina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Carolina, could you tell us just a little bit about your background and how you came to the world of making?
Sure. So I went into engineering first, not really knowing what it was about. And, well, I loved it, and I think it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And then I pursued my studies further and did a PhD in astrophysics. But that was all very theoretical, and I didn't really come across a real true maker culture until I went to the very first Science Hack Day organized in London back in 2010. And it was a true revelation for me. I just discovered the world of APIs, and that was just software making. And then I just came across hardware making as well. And I think that's when I really and truly became an engineer at heart. And it completely changed my perspective on these things, and especially the power that making has to give people the tools to solve problems, and to, it's sort of this, it's become democratic now. It's within reach of people to use technology to solve everyday problems, and I'm completely inspired by that idea.
So what are you making? What are you working on now, and how did that sort of feed into your piece for the issue?
Well, I've been working after I did a lot of astrophysics. I sort of moved on to more education area, and the interesting thing with that is that again, it's a real source of inspiration to see people learn and see people grow and develop thanks to science and perspectives and in particular astrophysics in this case. But from that perspective, I took making with me, and I decided to create makers as opposed to just make myself. And so I've been teaching programming in remote areas in South Africa where communities are barely connected. I've been trying to organize I've organized a Science Hack Day in South Africa as well. I've been trying to sort of push this maker movement here. But I'm not the only one. There are other people here too who come from different perspectives. There's a strong movement of journalists who are interested in data journalism. There are people who are just tinkerers who just got together and started centers where there's this place I mentioned in the article called House for Hack, where you have these brilliant minds who just come and play. And looking at South Africa as a country and the incredible extremes that you can find, you see, for example, these guys who have this incredible mind, who are very, very well trained, very sharp, who run places like House for Hack. They teach a lot as well through that, which is brilliant. And then you see other places that are very, very isolated, and where the internet is sort of, nobody's heard of it. Smartphones, low-end Android phones are starting to get into those communities, but people don't really know what the internet is, for example, but they may have Facebook, for example. And in places like that, where you have very rural and very communities that have very few resources, you realize that problem solving is like second nature. Every day they're making a plan to get through the day. And so it's so fascinating to see this incredibly powerful second nature of solving problems and to make the day. And I'd like to see that capacity brought into the world of making. So by trying to bring those tools of technology that are now affordable, that are now, within reach, that are open source, that are really within reach for communities like that, I just want to see what people come up with. And people have already come up with lots of brilliant ideas to solve their problems with technology, whereas previously technology would be the last thing that people would think of when trying to solve their problems.
And that was one of the things I was really interested in asking was, what have you seen? What are some things that you've seen that have come out of the work that you've been doing?
Right. Well, where to start? It goes from a guy on the side of the road. There's a lot of say beggars at traffic lights, for example. There's one guy who took a big cardboard box, cut out a square hole on it, and wrote YouTube in the front, and was a YouTube guy on the side of the road begging for money. So many people just laughed and saw the sort of inventiveness in this guy that he managed to make a living with that. That's one example. Who would have thought of that? Seriously, it's the imagination and the creativity of people sometimes great. And this guy was very artistic and very, very entertaining, fabulous. And then you see things like what I mentioned in the article as well in House for Hack, where they realize that they have these 3D printers and everything, and they managed to 3D print prosthetic limbs for people, which is very inspiring. But then they realize that the places where those limbs are needed the most, they can't really run a 3D printer because those machines are delicate, they need calibration and so on. So they've designed a very rugged 3D printer that is designed to work for non-specialists and in very, very rough environments, so that they can actually bring this capacity to bring prosthetic limbs to places where they are needed, like war zones, for example. And that typically works across the continent. And then there are things just on the side of the road. People can come up with ideas.
So, Carolina, my last question is, where do you see all this going? I mean, what you've been able to sort of witness in South Africa, as you say, the creativity and how they're all problem solvers. Where do you see it all going when making comes to these communities? What is your hope for the future?
Right. Oh, I have so much hope. South Africa has a problem. Its education system is ranked as one of the lowest in the world in terms of math and science, and it's a very sad thing. At the same time, the South African government really acknowledges that science and technology are the way to grow, and it's not just to grow into a knowledge-based economy, but really to grow to have a skilled population and to help people help themselves, essentially, and dream big. So the South African government invests a lot in science and technology, but at the same time you have this education system that struggles to produce the people who can really join that movement and be the scientists. And so what I believe is that the maker culture is very much a bottom-up approach. Instead of having a formal education system, if you start making, you learn by doing. It's the quintessential learning by doing. And I see every day how much people are capable of, this problem solving, as I mentioned earlier. So I hope that the maker culture grows and spreads across South Africa, because I think it would give the population of South Africa a way into science and technology in the 21st century and the future that currently the formal education system may not be capable of doing. But there are a lot of challenges on the way, but so much potential. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Carolina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for your great addition to the issue. Is there where can people go to get more information about making in South Africa?
That's a good one. There is no central point. There's lots of different movements, but we sort of know of each other. So I invite anybody to get in touch with me, and if they're interested in anything I've mentioned, I'm very happy to forward contact details or whatever. And especially if people are willing to come to South Africa to help spread that maker culture, there are always opportunities for internships to come and to have a sort of a sort of a paid holiday, in the sense that local accommodation can be organized if people want to just come and share their skills for free. And trust me, it's the experience of a lifetime. South Africa is a fantastically inspiring country.
Well, that's wonderful, and I hope some of the listeners and the readers of the IEEE Computer Magazine will take you up on that. So, Carolina, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.